Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing video. If you enjoy the content, I ask that you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming parts and new videos. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Are you ready? Let's go.
The story begins with our main character playing his virtual game. He and his companions have just finished an event, so the others are logging out of the game, and our main character is about to do the same. However, before logging out, he decides to open the treasure chest he just received. Upon opening it, a blinding light shines. It turns out his mastery reward is a golden ticket that allows him to cross over to the Azure world. He initially thought it was a bad reward and a scam, but driven by curiosity, he uses it. To his surprise, he is instantly sucked into a black hole. Shortly after, he wakes up in an open field and realizes he's on the 10-mile slope next to the beginner's village. This confuses him because he remembers turning off his VR, but surprisingly, he doesn't have a VR device with him. He had prepared for transmigration but wasn't ready to become a monster. Thinking of becoming a monster, he imagined there would definitely be some cheats. Even a slime could improve. But he was wrong. A slime crushes him to death. A goblin smashes his skull with a hammer. And even a same-level skeleton easily defeats him. This outcome greatly discourages him, and the only benefit of transmigrating is that he resurrects relatively quickly after death. Even the slime that killed him a few times is already at level 2. With this, he soon realizes that he can also level up, but then remembers that he is the weakest monster in this place. Still, this doesn't stop him from finding another way to level up. Shortly after, two adventurers are carrying out their novice task and fighting some skeletons. The knight kills the skeletons in front of him, leaving only the one behind. Then, the mage notices that the surviving skeleton is acting strangely, but the knight explains that characters in Azure are all hyper-intelligent, so a skeleton behaving strangely is unusual. Unexpectedly, the skeleton in front of him lightly strikes him, offending the knight, but that wasn't enough. So, the main character grabs something from the nearest bush and crafts a sign calling the knight an idiot. Now the knight knows he can't let this slide, so he attacks, making the skeleton smile because it knows its plan worked. Without hesitation, he steps away from the scene and lets the other skeleton do the dirty work. Since the knight has aroused the monster's hatred, when Azure monsters are awakened with hatred, they prioritize attacking players in a specific radius. If you kill them, the experience gain is shared among all who helped in the kill. He knew this because he has been an Azure player for 10 years, so he is familiar with everything. Here, even if he becomes a monster, he could still do something about it and find out the truth about his transmigration. Soon after leveling up, the first thing he will do when reaching level 3 is to kill the slime 10,000 times. Meanwhile, on the World Channel forum, newcomers are complaining about a level 5 skeleton harassing them. This commotion caught the attention of a level 25 knight, who without hesitation declares that he will help them deal with the skeleton on the 10-mile slope. The main character is enjoying the sun with his guards and his own enslaved slime, which he managed to dominate because as their levels increase, their intelligence also increases. Therefore, he can finally give instructions and communicate, but his day is ruined when the level 25 knight suddenly attacks him from behind. He didn't even have a chance to escape and was killed on the spot. Fortunately for him, death only makes him lose half of the experience gained. With this, he realizes he was being too arrogant but knows he can't let it slide, so he plans to make the knight pay, just like he did with the slime. However, living in the game for 8 days, he realizes that 2 days have passed in reality. So he realizes he needs to quickly find a way out because he believes his parents must be worried about him, even if only minimally. But his assumptions were completely wrong because his parents were enjoying their vacation without worrying about him at all. They didn't even bother to send him a message. Meanwhile, the main character decides to level up quickly so that he can change classes at level 20. By that time, he will have a human body and exact his revenge. Shortly after, he takes on a bunch of tasks and kills various monsters. After repeating this non-stop, he reaches level 20 in a single day. Now, he just needs to change classes in the main city, so he heads there. As expected, he is blocked by the guards at the gate and without questioning, is killed on the spot. He immediately resurrects, but his death causes him to lose half of the experience gained. He drops back to level 10. Now he realizes how foolish he is because he just remembered that he is a monster. Shortly afterward, in the Devil Wolf Valley, Adventurers are having difficulty dealing with a wolf, but they can't give up the challenge as they need wolf fur to change classes. While discussing their strategy, the archer notices a group of skeletons attacking a lone wolf. They were brutally attacking it with teamwork, which surprised the archer to see with his own eyes. But the wolf wouldn't go down without a fight, so it became enraged, its defense and attack becoming sharper. It was about to take down its opponents along with it, which the archer was trying to convey to his team, but they were still busy discussing. In contrast, the wolf failed to kill its opponents and was being attacked from behind, leaving the archer even more frantic. So his teammates stopped their conversations and went to see where the archer was pointing. To their surprise, monsters were hunting other monsters, and they were much better hunters than they could ever be. Meanwhile, a new player has just entered the game. A fairy welcomes him and introduces him to this incredible VR world called Ash in Azure. He can even synchronize all his 5 senses, including touch, to enjoy delicious food and the scent of flowers at the same time. There are no fixed tasks in Azure. Players need to personally engage in interactions with NPCs, in addition to triggering missions from super-intelligent AIs. He can also choose to enter an academy, enhancing his own skills and becoming part of the Azure world. There are 5 basic skills in this world, which are controlling elements, taming monsters, martial arts, engineering, and mind. Each skill has its own sub-skills, and there are almost infinite ways to combine different skills in the virtual world of Azure. He can definitely find the skill that suits him best. After the basics are presented to him, the fairy is about to guide him to get used to his basic movements. For this, the fairy asked the new player to head to the novice training field, the 10-mile slope, and kill 10 low-level monsters. Once he finishes, he can return to the quest. Hearing all this, he was filled with excitement and expectations, but that soon diminished after he passed through the portal and saw all the high-level skeletons waiting to attack him. This confused him, so he dropped his sword, which he shouldn't have done in front of these skeletons. Now defenseless, the skeletons easily surrounded him from all sides, and with that, his fate was sealed. Shortly after, the skeletons are cheerfully carrying their loot. Then, the main character gives small notebooks to the skeletons and instructs them to distribute them to other skeletons. And everyone should have the same equipment, except those with a different body shape like him. All other skeletons should look the same, and when they see high-level players, they should follow the instructions written in that notebook. They should always follow a set of rules. First, everyone should choose a different direction to run when fleeing. The skeletons have a speed that surpasses normal standards, so most players won't be able to catch them. Second, if players are level 5 or below 30, lure them to the meeting point and prepare a 10 versus 1, as they practiced. Third, if the player is above level 30 or has already changed classes, record their player ID. After that, run towards the goblin camps and provoke the goblins, letting the goblins attack the high-level player. Once the player is engaged, they will still gain some experience points. This way, high-level players won't be able to do anything against them. Unexpectedly, the skeletons have a problem with his master plan, which shocks him. But before he can ask the reason, the little skeleton clarifies that they can't read, which shocks him even more. So, he improvises and simply morally instructs them, which they surprisingly understand quickly. After that, he tells them that he will leave them for a while and puts the little skeleton in charge of the team. The little one asks why he has to leave, and he explains that the sky they can see now is small. But in the outside world, the sky is truly immense, since the Azure world is so vast that even now there's a shortage of players, and all kinds of cultures intertwine. He then tells the little skeleton that when he reaches a high enough level, there will be a time for him to leave and see the great mountains and rivers. This statement makes the little one's eyes sparkle with hope for the future, while the main character smiles, realizing he's suddenly talking to a monster about this. However, Azure is truly magical. He almost feels like they can all really think deeply about it. After this emotional moment, he bids farewell to all of them and leaves the place. But after a while, he returns because he accidentally took bags full of low-level armor they took from novice players, instead of the materials needed for their transfer, wasting his efforts to look cool. In a scene change, a mage is chasing a rabbit and trying to cast a beast-taming spell on it. But she didn't know that our main character is hiding in the bushes and is waiting for her to cast the spell on the rabbit. Therefore, when she casts it on the rabbit, he knocks out the rabbit, receiving the spell in its place, becoming a mage's pet. while the system congratulates her for acquiring a level 34 skeleton monster as her first pet, since the first pet will be her most important companion throughout her journey in the game. Instead of being happy, she collapses on the ground and starts crying, making the main character feel bad. So, he asks why, to which she responds that it's because she wanted a cute pink rabbit and he looks too ugly to her. Now he realizes he has encountered a shallow idiot, yet he knows it's too late to give up. So, he improvises while summoning all the eloquence he can muster to explain why he kicked the pink rabbit she wanted to tame out of the way. Then, he tells her a story that he is actually an extraordinarily handsome prince. The enemy kingdom oppressed them, but he was always in contact with their princess, so they both fled and got rid of the chains that bound them. However, in the end, they couldn't escape from what the world thought about them, and everyone opposed them being together. Therefore, they could only send letters to each other, delivered by their guards, to talk about their sorrows. Regardless, he never thought that the princess would fall in love with her guard and that she wanted to run away with this guard. With that, he realized that the mage was now starting to believe his story, so he took the story even further, adding that the princess's plans didn't go as she wanted. To his surprise, she underestimated the loyalty of his guard. Even when she tried everything to stop him, the guard still returned to his side. He brought back the princess's resolution letter, but he couldn't warn him of the danger that was inside. The princess was jealous of the prince, who gained the guard's loyalty, so she cursed a letter. From then on, the prince could only live as a skeleton, reviled by everyone. Thus, he committed to lifting the curse and avenging his guard. Now that he had finished inventing his background story, he asked the mage if she could take on this task to fulfill his revenge and restore his original appearance, to which she instantly believed in his story and was excited to help him find his guard so they could be reunited. But he quickly tells her that his guard died to avoid the BL label. She immediately loses interest, so, to convince her again, he tells her that skeletons can exist, so it's easy for him to resurrect a dead man, which she is delighted to hear and regains her enthusiasm to help him. Now that she is fully convinced, she introduces herself as Bubble. After that, they are now in front of the gates of the main city, and the main character is confidently walking to enter the city. However, the guard stops them to inform the mage that her pet skeleton needs to be on a leash to enter the city, which shocks him because he completely forgot about it. Shortly after, he finally enters the city with a leash, and his mistress, being a novice, was enchanted to see all the amazing things inside the main city. He explained that all level 20 players transfer to the city, as the detail of the Azure world is almost the same as the real world. The only city located at the center of the east-west junction has become the commercial and exchange point, making it the most prosperous city in Azure. Then, the mage realizes that there is also a tea shop inside the city, which she is delighted to see, so the main character advises her to have one, as Azure is connected to VR through brainwaves, which can simulate taste. But unfortunately for her, she has no money, so the main character tells her not to worry and gives her a bag of coins that he stole from players to further convince her that he is a prince. With that, she bought a milk tea, which she liked more than the real one. But their peaceful walk was suddenly interrupted by an adventurer shouting at an NPC who bumped into him and is now venting his anger on the NPC because he was furious about being robbed by a skeleton before. But the main character decides not to get involved and was about to leave the scene, but to his surprise, Bubble is not by his side now and is now protecting the NPC. As brave as she was, her level was the opposite, as she is just a level 10 novice. With that, the bully started scolding and mocking her, which left her shaken, but she knew she couldn't do anything. After that, the bully decides to leave. But to his surprise, the main character defeats him and mocks him in the same way he mocked her mistress, showing his level to them, shocking the bully's teammates. But before he could humiliate them further, the NPC girl approached him and thanked him, but decided to take matters into her own hands and went to the player, threatening him to pay, which he still had the audacity to ask why. Then she decides to teach him a lesson he will never forget and defeats him to obliteration. Now Bubble and the skeleton understand that an NPC can be cruel sometimes. After the beating, the player was handcuffed and taken to jail. In a scene change, the three are now inside a cafe discussing the events that happened before. Bubble asks why she was not punished, to which she explains that she knew the guard, so he definitely wouldn't arrest her. And since they helped her, she introduces herself as Yuko, and gives them the address of her fruit shop so that, if they need her, they can visit her there. After that, they went their separate ways, and Skeleton and Bubble are now walking outside. Skeleton tells her that it seems they've stumbled upon a hidden task since Yuko gave them her address. She asks what a hidden task is, to which he explains that it's something she'll encounter later. He advises not to underestimate any NPCs in Azure, as there are various hidden tasks, some without clues. For example, at the end of the third main story, she has to help an old man acquire a refining skill and become a master assassin. Before he could give more examples, he realized they were finally in front of the transfer hall. Without hesitation, they entered. Now inside the transfer hall, she was shocked to realize that this game could be more realistic, as she noticed they needed to queue up to receive a number. Skeleton reassured her that it's still okay because when there are more people there will be more windows, so they don't need to wait as long. While waiting, Skeleton told her that the 10th anniversary main mission in Azure would definitely be the biggest ever. During the 9th anniversary, there was already a civil war between the East and West countries. Although 10 years have passed, many new players are still joining, like Bubble, who joined because she heard the game would have significant activity and her classmate dragged her into playing. Then, her number was called, and she went to the counter, handing over the right amount of materials to change classes. Her request was understood, and she was allowed to participate in the class change ceremony without any issues. Meanwhile, Bubble was approached by a guy with a squirrel-like appearance, telling her that she might have been deceived, as he considers himself a know-it-all, and to him, his knowledge is always right. He said he never saw a monster having a secret mission, and even if there were, they would be high-class monsters with intelligence and a super high level. With a smug smile, he tells her she's wrong, sends a friend request, and leaves the scene. With this strange interaction, the mage is now doubting Skeleton's identity. However, before she could think more about it, Skeleton had already finished his class change ceremony and is now in front of her with a new handsome face and an amazing appearance. Bubble was about to cry, which worried Skeleton, who asked the reason. She explained what happened, and without hesitation, Skeleton comforted her and took her to eat something good, making her feel much better. Meanwhile, the squirrel-like guy is inside the bar, drinking and shocked that Bubble rejected his friend request. He was planning to scare Bubble and see what was happening with the monster with her, but she didn't fall into the trap. But since a monster entered the city, there must be many people aware of it, so he wasn't too bothered and was still excited about what the future holds. At the same time, Bubble is enjoying the food Skeleton offers her and eating everything she can get her hands on. Skeleton tells her that he will help her improve and level up in her profession to prepare her for the DV Academy election, as only level 40 players can participate in the entrance exam for Azure's top 3 colleges. Previous participants also have the opportunity to join, with the chance to accumulate important clues and connections. The schools require much more skill and efficiency than normal self-training. There are also various legendary players and NPCs teaching. He is sharing this because something happened to him at the moment of his profession change success. He received an email, surprised that a monster can still have an email, but the content of the email surprised him even more, telling him that someone on the other side of this email would never think that a small monster would change occupation so quickly, and asks if he wants to know why he transmigrated and if he wants to know how to return to the real world. The email tells him to complete the main mission, and his answer will be there, wishing him good luck and saying they will be watching. Remembering what happened made him furious, so he declares loudly that he will win and see who is really messing with him. Bubble unexpectedly responds happily, saying that it's the fighting spirit she also needs to boost. Then she asks for more food. In contrast, he knows he'll run out of money if she keeps eating like that. After eating inside the restaurant, they are now walking outside, but Bubble is still eating, so Skeleton asks her to eat less. Although eating here doesn't make her gain weight, the food is very expensive, and even a rich owner can't keep up with her appetite. She happily responds that she knows, but ignores it and changes the subject, asking what they will do next. Skeleton says they will later go to the DD Academy election exam, and with someone like him as a pet, at his current level of 10, she can practically enter the second exam without issues. Then, they will focus on leveling up so she is ready for the second exam, which is 10 days away, making her very excited. Later, on the 10-mile slope, skeletons, goblins, and slimes are doing their best building their new base, which surprises the main character upon arrival due to the speed of their progress. He had only been gone for 3 days, but it seems they are almost finished. While he is mesmerized by the new fortress, the skeleton notices him, and without hesitation they attack him, but he dodges the attack and realizes they don't recognize him, so he gives them a lesson. Now on the ground, the monster realizes they can't win, but they still remember what their master taught them, so they decide to use their supreme ability, which is to retreat. Now, they are all out of sight and cannot be seen, surprising Bubble, who asks if these are the monsters he considers tamed. He responds that by executing their command to escape, if they can't defeat the opponent, they are considered quite tamed. He then calls the fat skeleton, implying that he is their master, and orders them to stop hiding. The fat skeleton obeys and cheerfully comes out of the ground, immediately asking why he chose to transform. They then sit down and explain what happened. Now that the fat one knows Bubble is their boss, he asks how they progressed so quickly. The fat one explains that they realized the HP and strength of the goblins are stronger than theirs, so they gathered some goblins. Working together, they can already defeat players around level 30, but they found that the chances of escaping are not so high. So, they built a fortress on the surface, which is just a disguise acting as a bunker. After having the bunker, they can quickly escape to the underground. Players have difficulty finding them, and even if they do, players entering the underground are not familiar with the paths. They can choose to exit the underground and kill them. Hearing this intricate plan, he is incredulous and asks if they are really monsters, to which the fat one responds that everyone learns from the best, and that's him. He then tells him to forget it, as he even learned to flatter. He then tells the fat one that this time he is here mainly to level up with his master so they can prepare for the upcoming entrance exam. Therefore, the fat one immediately offers that they can easily join the player hunting with them, for which he gets scolded for being foolish, as Bubble clearly does not engage in PK. Now that he knows the fat one doesn't have bright ideas, Skeleton suggests that the fat one takes his subordinate monsters and Bubble to kill other monsters and level up. During this time, he needs to get accustomed to the skills and the new body he has after the occupation transfer. They also need to wait for the Academy entrance exam notification. Normally, pets that surpass the player's level show signs of decreasing loyalty, but they don't need to worry about that. Under the circumstance that their levels have a significant difference, they should be able to receive a good ranking. Now that he has finished explaining what to do, he encourages them to hurry up and level up. Bubble only needs to level up to level 39, and there are no restrictions for pets. He will also try his best to increase their levels, since there is temporarily no time to gather materials for a second transfer. Time passes quickly as they enjoy their time together, train, and the main character's subordinates even manage to capture the knight who killed him before. A short while later, a messenger pigeon arrives to deliver Bubble's entrance exam notice. They receive it happily, while the knight is completely defeated and stuck to the ground. After opening the letter, Skeleton is surprised to find that there are so many strong players this year. He thought they were already strong enough, but they are actually ranked 9th. Seeing this, instead of getting discouraged, he gets excited, thinking that this exam will be fun. Meanwhile, in the current world, Secretary Miss Chong brings the data that Boss Dong requested and puts it on his desk. She then asks him what happened to Wei Dong, one of their colleagues, as she hasn't seen him for a few days. He explains that Wei Dong has been transferred to another department to conduct some scientific technological experiments, so he won't be here for a while. His parents, who were traveling the world, were happy since their son wouldn't bother them as much, and they happily cooperated with their son's arrangements. Boss Dong asks her why she's suddenly concerned about Wei Dong and if she's thinking about him, making her so embarrassed that she leaves while blushing. Meanwhile, a pink-haired girl named Schwer is standing in front of a mansion and is welcomed by a beautiful lady who calls her aunt. She is welcomed, so Schwer doesn't hesitate to go up to meet Bubble. Coincidentally, Bubble has just left the game, so without hesitation, Schwer jumps on her and hugs her a bit. Schwer then asks if she's having fun playing Azure, to which Bubble happily tells her what happened inside Azure and the joyful adventures she had meeting Skeleton. Schwer, after hearing this, becomes curious and asks Bubble to tell more about the skeleton she met, to which Bubble immediately tells the invented story of Skeleton, which she believes is 100% true. A few moments later, Schwer finishes listening to Bubble for a whole day and wonders if Bubble is dating the game characters, which she immediately denies to avoid suspicion of being strange. But Schwer doesn't mind, as she tells her that after finishing her work, she will enter the game to find Bubble and see her little skeleton too. After that, she leaves. Now alone in her room, Bubble lies on her bed, reminiscing about the fun time she spent in Azure, and can only sigh, wishing it were all real. However, she decides not to dwell on it and go to sleep. But that's not what happened. A few moments later, on the slope of 10 miles, inside the skeleton camp, Bubble is staring intently at Skeleton, who asks why she logged in at that hour. She explains that she couldn't sleep, so she came to check. She makes up an excuse, saying she was afraid he might be lying to her and secretly escape. Seeing her worried, Skeleton sits down and reassures her, saying he'll always be there. Hearing these words makes her feel secure, and she easily falls asleep. The next day, the annual final exam rankings finally begin. Thousands of people gather in one place, and many merchants, businessmen, and scammers are selling their goods outside the entrance. Skeleton then explains to her that the candidates for the entrance exam are reduced from 30,000 to 2,000, and they narrow down the area and level, choosing only 30 people in the end. Each exam also affects the competition of all forces. The palace also broadcasts live streams and betting matches. Each exam is also a carnival for everyone. Watching this familiar scene, he recalls that before transforming, he was just the president of a small guild and always watched the live stream. But this time he could finally go to the exam venue. Suddenly they are greeted by Yuko, so they greet her back. She proudly declares that she will take care of them. Now together, they enter the temple. Yuko notices that Skeleton has been looking at the dubious manual all this time, so she advises him to pay attention to where he's walking so he stops reading. But he explains that these manuals are important because they contain a lot of information about the examiners. She tells him that much of the information in those manuals is inaccurate and that it's too late to study them. Many people study the information right after being notified, so she throws away the book and offers her own manual made by her. To his surprise, the manual is very detailed. Now he wonders how Yuko, an NPC, would know anything about the exam. A few moments later, they are sitting, waiting for Chilao to appear so the contest can begin. Shortly after Chilao arrives, although he is one of the top 5 power holders in the Azure world, he stumbles and falls face first on the ground, making the atmosphere awkward as others question his true power. The guard helps him up, for which he is grateful. Then, he begins his speech, congratulating everyone who passed. However, he reminds that every year there's a possibility of a deviation, so he encourages everyone not to lose hope. This exam is divided into the first exam and the reassessment, and it is filled with aspects of wisdom, skill, and ability to test the player's capability. Next, everyone can pick up their number plate and enter the first location. He decides not to talk much, so they can start. Therefore, the guard immediately opens the portal, and everyone has already picked up their number plate, so the exam begins. The announcer starts the broadcast of the Divine Academy of Azure and welcomes all viewers to the 10th entrance exam competition. After introducing themselves, they explain the whole situation and that there are 2,000 participants in this exam, but only 30 will be chosen. The first test consists of 3 sections: body, wisdom, and weapon. On the island, there are 500 items corresponding to each section. The player must collect at least 3 items to meet one of the standards. Once 2 standards are met, they will have passed. Due to the requirements, players taking the exam must have their level below 40. The physical assessment needs to be collected, and lower-level players can only pass through teamwork. But the quantity of ghosts makes it so that once united, it's not enough to be divided among all. So, how will they choose? The following is the instrument evaluation for players needing expertise in assembling instruments. Every 3 parts can be assembled into a qualified piece, and all these parts come from a whole that was broken into 500 pieces. Selectively and carefully finding the perfect fitting parts is not an easy task. The last is the wisdom test. Scrolls scattered across the island need 3 of them to be gathered to complete a formation. Not only does this formation satisfy the exam standards, but it can also serve as transfer coordinates, becoming a crucial part of passing this exam. And now, the players have already arrived on the island. What interesting events will happen this time? The announcer puts all his energy into the exam to take a look and enjoy this fascinating game. Meanwhile, the ghost Martin suddenly smells prey and, in an instant, attacks, leaving a trail of blue flame. But unfortunately for her, her opponent was stronger. so she turns into a popsicle, just like other ghost martins that encountered Skeleton. While Skeleton didn't think this mission would involve restraining a monster like this, it seems like a good opportunity to test his new abilities, and with a smile, he declares that the game officially begins. Meanwhile, a group of lower-ranking players is hiding in the bushes. The Tiger Lady tells them to listen, as she explained that the Ghost Martin is extremely fast, but her defensive turning ability is weaker. So the first thing to do is model her course of action, and then they can organize people to surround her, and then attack her. But they've already waited for a few hours, and there has been no activity, so they wonder if they might be in the wrong place. The warrior reacts to what she said, and asks if she doubts his gut feeling. He expresses his disdain and warns that he has a very bad temper, and if it weren't for the exam that prevented him from attacking her, he would have already beaten her. After hearing this musclehead talk, the Cat Lady retreats in her statement, stating that what the Tiger Lady says makes sense because she is a formation mage, and only she can decipher the formation. After waiting a few more minutes, the Cat Lady is quick and suggests that she will check the situation first. The warrior tries to discourage her, but he is ignored. A few moments later, the warrior is crouched, still trying not to reveal his location, while being urinated on by a dog. Suddenly, the Cat Lady comes back and tells them that there is no need to hide, and that there are no signs of a ghost martin within a radius of 10 miles. She questioned a passing player, since the exam doesn't allow them to ask on forums. Apparently, the martin has already been killed by a trainer, which really angered the warrior, as he was urinated on by a dog. In a scene change, Skeleton is standing on the edge of a cliff. He realizes that something is wrong. He has walked around, so he wonders why there are no ghost martins. He has only killed about 200 so far. At the same time, the announcer informs the viewers that they have just received a message. In the 2 hours since the start of the exam, a player named I Want to Pink Bubbles Pat with a level of about 61 has killed more than 200 ghost martins. Normally, players' levels are restricted to 40 and below, but pets don't have this limit, although they have never seen a pet with a higher level than its owner. As everyone knows, if the pet's level is too high, it will lead to an inability to gain loyalty and result in a setback for the owner. Meanwhile, Skeleton was visited by the Cat Lady, who asked, as she heard he was selling martins. Seeing a potential customer, Skeleton greets her as a dealer and shows her the goods. Now that the Cat Lady sees them with her own eyes, she immediately asks how much they cost, to which he firmly states it's 50 gold coins per piece with no bargaining. Hearing that it costs so much, the Cat Lady gets irritated and calls him a cheat, as 1 gold is equivalent to $100 in real life. But Skeleton has his ways and quickly deflects the situation, carrying her like a princess, using what he learned from quantum rhythms. He tries to convince her with his charm. The Cat Lady tries to resist, but Skeleton is too much for her, suggesting he would lower the price if she let him pet her for half a day, which she tried to resist hard but, as expected, failed. A few moments later, she returns to her teammates with the skins she earned. Then, the warrior realizes that she only got 6 skins when they clearly have 3 people, so he asks why. To which she is perplexed about how he ranked higher than her with that IQ. So, she clarifies to him that if they don't need to fight the Ghost Martins, why would they burden themselves with bringing a soldier? To bring him, they need to break 3 formations, so she suggests he just stay there. Hearing this, the warrior now knows he's in trouble. Therefore, he draws his weapons, but unfortunately for him, they were 1 step ahead. So he is immediately bound by a tentacle, dropping his weapon and preventing him from retaliating. The Cat Lady tells him that, first of all, players in the initial test cannot attack each other, and even if she let him go, he wouldn't be able to hurt them, but they can limit the player's movements. This is the initial formation of Hong Lian, which was launched in his previous position, as they planned to abandon him after they finished fighting the 6 Martins anyway. She tells him they are just following the rules and hopes fate doesn't make them meet again as they leave the area. Meanwhile, another group is wondering why there are no Ghost Martins, so they assume it's a bug. But suddenly, Skeleton appears before them, displaying his treasures and asking if they would like to buy some. Somewhere on the island, 2 competitors have now acquired 2 formation balls and almost cleared the level. They notice how interesting Skeleton is, so the woman asks Guqian if he wants to keep playing there for a little longer, to which he replies that playing in the first test is a waste of time. The next level is important, so he hopes they can see that vampire skeleton in the next level. Then, they notice that some players have already cleared the level, so they decide to hurry. At the same time, the announcer states that the leading hunters have already begun clearing the level. However, 3 specific players have now caused many others to fail this level because there are no more ghost martins to hunt. Normally, 2 players work together to kill the ghost martins to collect vice pieces or break the formation, but today, many players can't fulfill the first requirement. Not only that, the price range of these monsters is indeed a bit too high, so they wonder what I Want to Pink Bubbles Pat wants to do with all that money. Meanwhile, somewhere in the desert where pieces are scattered on the ground, Bubble realizes that they suddenly got a lot of money, so she asks Yuko what she thinks Skeleton is doing. But Yuko is busy and cannot be bothered, as the exam for mechanical devices is harder than she expected. There are so many pieces. It's like a 500-piece puzzle that has been mixed and spread across the desert plain. Find 3 puzzle pieces and combine them to form a part and clear the level. According to the information she gathered earlier, where a player finishes their strength exam, they will come here to pick device parts, and it would be easier to clear the level by working together with others. But it has been so long, and there are still only so many players. Therefore, she wonders why others haven't passed the strength exam yet, but she didn't know that this result was because of her teammate, and now he is causing a standstill, a deadlock. Without hesitation, he ran towards them. However, a bear dad suddenly stopped him, asking if he wanted a ghost marten skin, just like he was doing with the other competitors. Now that he's in front of another capitalist, he realizes that this big bear is the other reason why there are no more ghost martens to hunt. So, he is straightforward about it and asks him, to which the big bear responds that he only killed 100 of them, so there should still be more. Meanwhile, the commentator announces that the 2 biggest scoundrels have finally met and are now on the edge of their seats, wondering what will come from the meeting of these 2 rascals. It seems that these 2 want the same customer, so they assume they will fight. Meanwhile, Skeleton now realizes that there are barely any ghost martens left, while the big bear didn't think there would be anyone besides him in this round who would kill so many martens. So, they got a little heated, and it seemed like they were about to engage in a fight since both sell ghost marten skins. This outcome really excited the commentator, as he already assumes they are starting a fight. And these 2 rivals seem quite jealous of each other, because they are in the same industry, but also enemies. Without a doubt, these guys are about to fight. However, the commentator's assumptions were completely wrong because now the 2 greet each other, since both realize that together they have monopolized the current marten skin market. More than that, the price is theirs to set. Witnessing this, they could only wait for what would happen next. Now they offer the skin to the nearest player and still sell the skin for 50 gold coins to him. But now each player can only get 2 of them. If he wants 3, he'll need to ask another player for help, and they might even give a discount of 5 gold coins, which can be accumulated. The bear was surprised, but, as expected, Skeleton has a quick brain. He even assumed that Skeleton had done advertising before. At the same time, word spread about their business adventures, and because of that, players began to gather in front of them, while commentators were astonished to witness this with their own eyes, as they had never seen this kind of situation in all their years as commentators. Before, there were players with incredible skills to quickly kill several ghost martens without worrying about others. They would finish their own work and leave. Meanwhile, Bubble is having a fever seeing all the money added to her inventory. Now she can probably drink milk tea until she dies, but Yuko doesn't like it, as she asks Bubble to open her chat panel with her pet. In a scene change, Skeleton is selling skins while using his wrist to flirt with girls at the same time. Then, he receives a call and answers it, only to be scolded by Yuko, telling him to hurry up and arrive soon, because without his cooperation, they won't be able to finish the second level, and time will soon run out. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, other players are gathering in one place. They are in trouble because they can't afford the skins, and if they don't go to the second level now, there won't be enough time and they will get stuck. But they can't attack Skeleton because his level is too high. Suddenly, another player, who is in the shadows, suggests that if they can't attack, they can use other methods. They can work together and reclaim what is rightfully theirs. In a scene change, Yuko is having a fit of rage because Skeleton hasn't arrived yet. Coincidentally, Skeleton appeared running towards them in a hurry, but unfortunately, he is being chased by a group of players accusing him of what he did, while the bear transforms into its second form like a snake, wrapping around Skeleton as he runs. Bubble, in the crowd, confused about who they are chasing and what they did, asks, to which a player responds that she should be careful with that pet ahead because he is a thief. He killed all the ghost martens and demanded to sell them for ridiculously high prices. Who knows what kind of master trained him to be such a corrupt pet? Hearing all this, she realizes they are chasing her pet, Skeleton. A few moments later, Skeleton, tired of all this, decides to use his skill that he wanted to reveal later. So he stops running, faces the crowd, points the palm of his hand at them, and uses his ice bomb skill, creating ice in front of them and breaking it in just a second, creating a dust cloud so they can escape. Now hiding behind a rock, like an NPC, he explains how he perfectly executes his skill, saying that he uses the water element. He can control the cold around him like a skeleton and make the water around him form into a trap. He made the water element suddenly explode into an ice bomb. Now his first skill has been revealed, while the big bear, now a snake, asks how much time he thinks they have. Then he suggests stopping talking and running. A few moments later, Yuko can barely get 20 device pieces, and they only had 7 more hours. There is not enough time, and she sees that Bubble is trying to help, but she knows that without mechanical skill, she won't be able to assemble these device pieces. So, she tells Bubble to stop playing around and take the gears out of her hands. Suddenly, Skeleton has just returned with the big bear, but Yuko was stressed because they could fail the second level because of Skeleton's greed. Therefore, she scolds him and the bear. After her fit of rage and now calmer, she tells them that there is only one other option now. She explains that she observed some device pieces earlier, and they have a pattern. Although the assembled pieces have nothing in common, if they break these pieces into smaller components, they can reassemble them into a proper device. Although she is not sure if they can reassemble them to their original state, she orders Skeleton to continue looking for the remaining pieces. After finding them, he must hand them over to a robot helper, and they must not give up on collecting the pieces. Now that Skeleton is collecting the pieces, the bear asks to join, because he has nothing better to do and is just waiting for his daughter-in-law, who is a formation mage, to arrive here since they promised to meet here after killing the Martins. But before they could continue collecting the pieces, the masked man from before appeared before them. Therefore, Skeleton asks if he is like the other players who want revenge, to which the masked man clarifies that he came to notify them that some players have figured out where he is and are coming after him. He declares that he can help Skeleton stop them. As a cheater, he can sense the same kind within miles. So, he asks why he should help him, to which the masked man explains that it's because he, a high-level pet, raises suspicions of having connections with this year's main task, so befriending him shouldn't bring any harm. Hearing all this from the mouth of the masked man made Skeleton think, so he accepted the masked man's proposal and separated from his group. Before meeting Skeleton, the cat lady reported to the masked man named Yiwu that they leaked the location of Bubble's pet and grouped other players as he had directed. Then, she asks why Yiwu wanted to befriend Skeleton but provoke the wrath of other players to attack him, to which he responds that there must be a reason to befriend him. Of course, others must have noticed him already. He was so greedy after all, but he is not the only one who has the ability to kill so many ghost martins. He also hunted most of them to reduce the approval rate in the first exam. Meanwhile, the commentator is wondering if Yiwu knows that this is a live broadcast because he literally just said that he irritated all the players on purpose. But he is the successor of an assassin alliance, so it's better for them not to question him. Now, in the present, Bubble and her companion are traveling through the desert. They then decide to rest there while looking for other players because Yuko said they are assembling pieces around there, and other players might head to her location. So, Skeleton tells them to hold the players as much as possible to avoid bothering Yuko. Speaking of Skeleton, the bear asks Bubble why his level is much higher than hers, and how she captured him, to which he tries to dodge the question by ignoring the bear. But the bear gently asks what the problem is, to which she explains that it's because Skeleton told her not to reveal his identity. Hearing her excuse, the bear concludes without a doubt that her pet's identity is indeed exceptional, so he knows he needs to figure out a way to befriend him. That way, he can get some clues. Meanwhile, Bubble is sitting, probably because she realized what Skeleton told her, which is that if they ask about her identity, she can act as mysteriously as possible. These top players all have paranoid personalities. The less they understand, the friendlier they will be with them, so they can get more information. Meanwhile, the cat lady found them and immediately informed the other players of their location. In an instant, they surrounded Bubble and the bear, trying to convince her to hand over her pet. But suddenly, They were all bound by Yiwu, while Skeleton used his ice ability to fend off the other players. Using his abilities constantly, he is running out of HP, and there are still many opponents. He claims that he won't be able to escape if captured. Seeing that Skeleton is struggling, Yiwu tells him to come to him since he has the players under control. So, Skeleton did just that, but suddenly acted as if he had lost control of his abilities and cancelled them, just to see if this pet would surprise him more when faced with death. Now Skeleton and Bubble are in a difficult situation, surrounded. The bear is pondering whether to risk his life for some unknown information, as it will be troublesome if he can't get out of this. However, before he makes a decision, Bubbly has had enough of all this, so she decides not to pretend anymore. She raises her wand to summon her pet, casting a summoning circle in front of them. A level 55 slime appears before them, shocking everyone who witnessed it, even surprising the commentators, as they didn't expect her, a level 10 novice to have 2 pets, and a high-level slime at that. It seems she continued to add points to her taming skills in the transfer, and even added an extra space for a pet. But training another pet would take a lot of time and money, so it's clearly not beneficial, especially being a level 55 slime. Meanwhile, the priest can't take it anymore and declares that he needs to defeat her to the death, as he has never suffered such humiliation in his entire life, summoning a slime as his opponent. He then asks if she thinks the slime can defeat him, to which she responds by showing him personally, and throws her slime in front of them, which suddenly transforms into a gat or slime, startling everyone, even the commentators. Meanwhile, Skeleton is now cornered by players from all sides, so he declares that he can only release that attack. Yiwu was excited to see if Skeleton would show his trump card now, but to his surprise, he just called Bubble and asked her to take him back to the pet space, which she did gladly. He then smiled at Yiwu, mocking him as he was being teleported. Now Yiwu is in an embarrassing situation, and players are annoyed with him for using them, to which he still tries to get away with, but unfortunately it won't work for the second time. At the same time, commentators laugh at Yiwu because they didn't expect someone as proficient in calculations as him to simply be outsmarted by a pet. In a swift change of scene, Skeleton returned to his master's side as the other players had requested. So, now Bubble asks if there's anything else they need, but as expected, seeing all the high-level pets she has, everyone backs off, leaving only the priest, who is with the gang leader Mao. Now that he is alone, he can only ask the slime if he can touch his masculine pectorals.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and like the video. Thank you.